Welcome to Spin the Wheel Showdown, where every video I sit down with a guest and we're going to spin that leader wheel. And depending on what the wheel gets, we're going to be playing a game with two different random leaders, some of the leaders we have not played, and going to see who is the better leader. Now let's spin that wheel and see what we get. What's up, everybody? The wheel has spoken, and I am playing Bello Betty, and across the table we've got Aegis Cat playing good old Smoker. He's actually playing my Smoker list, and I'm actually playing his Bello Betty list here. It's a bit of a flipped game here, as he's not very familiar with playing Smoker, and I do not nearly have as much expertise on Bello Betty either. Gonna go ahead and start off on the best curve for Bello Betty, which is the even curve. Gonna slam down a Koala. Not really the kind of card you want to be playing out with your early in the game, especially since it's a nice 2K or a potential way with that -3 on play to kind of take care of something on the board, swinging into that. But we don't have anything else better to play in a hand, and ultimately getting bodies on board is very important. Smoker realizing that as well, plays that Helmeppo and then swings a nice little 7K as Helmeppo will make Koala a 0 cost, enabling Smoker's ability here. This is going to be quite an uphill battle for the Bello Betty deck, as the Smoker deck, number one, can KO at least one thing per turn, and also it's being piloted by somebody who knows the Bello Betty matchup and knows how to play Bello Betty and how to play against Bello Betty in and out. So this is going to be a very difficult matchup for me, as I'm not nearly as experienced on the Bello Betty side of it. But you can see just by the way my opponent's playing, already establishing a body on board to contest Bello Betty's bodies to allow them to potentially KO more than one thing a turn. It's going to ultimately be very strong against me here as I'm going into my 4-Dawn turn. I've got a few potential plays in hand. Honestly, the best play in hand is just slamming down the Karasu, potentially just swinging a 5K into 4K here. Alright, we're going to play Karasu down. Karasu's going to -1000 power to the leader. And now I'm going to swing a 5K into 4K, requiring at least a 2K to get out of, and a 2K he has. Alright, passing back to good old Smokey's turn. Going to be on the 5-Dawn here. Could be the turn that you slam down a Tashigi, but looking at the hand, does not look like a Tashigi is currently present. Brandy's going to instead go starting to search for a Tashigi here. Look at the top 3, and there is a Tashigi in the mix. Going to go ahead and grab that one, add it to hand. One of the absolute best cards in this matchup, and in any matchup, is a Tashigi in the middle of the game here. Being able to -4 and then trash a 0 cost or less is just so incredibly strong in the Smoker deck. Tashigi is one of the best cards in the deck for sure. Opponent's going to swing 5K. I'm going to counter that. Opponent's going to swing a 6K, and I just really don't want to go low. I do have a Koala in hand, which is one of the new cards from OP09. Allows you to, I believe, on play, it's a blocker. You add the top or bottom life to your hand, and then you can play a 4 cost or less, or something like that, and then you draw a card. So I know I'm going to be potentially taking myself down to 2 at some point anyways. So to try to counter out of those early hits here, to kind of allow my life to be relatively high at this point. Bello Betty is not a deck that runs too many triggers anymore. Back in the day, before we had a full 50-card Revolutionary Army build thanks to set 9, we used to run a bunch of trigger cards from other card types, like Big Mom Pirates. But we don't run those anymore, so there's a lot less opportunities for bodies to come out of life. Gonna start with that was an Ivankov, one of the best cards, allowing you to look top 3 and grab out a card, put it into play. I believe Revolutionary Army card with 5,000 or less power. Gonna play out the Karasu. Gonna now finally mark on the Smoker how much power he has. He's already down to 4K. Potentially I could discard a card from my hand and then swing 6K with Koala, 6K with Bello Betty, as well as an 8K with Karasu. When Karasu attacks, he does his effect again if he's at least at 7,000 power. We're gonna go ahead and discard the good old Raise Max. Remember that card from Red Purple Law? Crazy card. But it's a Revolutionary Army card, so we're gonna go ahead and use that here, and we're gonna go ahead and start with a 6K into a 3K body, recognizing that my opponent will potentially use those to contest my board as I start to swing here. And so taking that out here, the swing with the Karasu down, taking my opponent down to a 3K leader, he's gonna take that, and then now swinging 6K into 3K, which is a huge hit. Gonna require at least 2 2Ks to get out of, and my opponent decides to just take the hit. Passing it over to my opponent's turn. They did pick up the Tashigi last turn, so we've got that going for us at this point. We are on 7-Dawn. I did knock, Bello Betty did knock Smoker off of the preferred curve of even. But anyways, potentially has a plan. The Smoker has a plan here to potentially take out both Karasus. Could play out the Smoker, or could play out the Tashigi to put that Karasu down to 0 cost, the one that's currently active, and then attach Tudon to leader, use leader effect on that Karasu to make himself a 8k power leader to swing 5-8 into my 5 on the other Karasu here. Opponent's going to test the waters, swinging a brand new into a Koala. Now my thought process here was I basically saw the writing on the wall, knowing this deck in and out, seeing the Tashigi from last turn. I knew that potentially my 2 Karasus were going to be gone, so I wanted to try to protect the rest of my board to the best of my ability here. And so countering out with a 1k against the brand new will allow my Koala to stay potentially for the next turn, which will allow me to again swing another 6k or higher to keep pressuring my opponent's hand. Opponent's hand is starting to size up a little bit. Got a 2k T-bone in the front, but the back half of that hand just a little clunky, which sometimes those Navy decks tend to get a little bit of clunk, which might end up biting him towards the end of the match here. Smoker typically will have a pretty good matchup into Bello Betty, but I have definitely lost to Bello Betty playing Smoker. But we'll see here as we go on. I'm developing pretty nicely right now, but we're about to see my little castle, my development kind of crush down here as opponent's going to activate Smoker and then swing 8k into my Karasu and then use Tashigi's effect to trash the other one. 2 Karasus down, and we're going to have to start rebuilding here, and that is where the nice little 6-cost Koala is going to come absolutely in clutch here. Potentially, it's going to draw us at least 2 cards, 1 card off the top of our life, 1 card off the top of our deck, and then let us put something into play in the midst of those effects here. So we're going to go ahead and play Koala out. She's also a blocker, 6k blocker. We're going to take 1 life, and then we can play something out. We're going to play out, I believe, just this Bello Betty that we grabbed out of hand. And that Bello Betty says if we've got 2 or less life, we draw a card, so we're going to draw another card. And then rest of Koala's effect says to draw a card. So we just basically drew 3 cards that turn, which for Revolutionary Army is incredibly powerful. Just a fantastic effect. Now we're kind of thinking how we want to play on the rest of this turn. Don't really have enough Dawn to play anything out, but we could just kind of start pushing some big swings here. Also cleaning up my opponent's board when necessary. I don't want to I want to force my opponent to commit extra resources to try to KO some of my things. So we're going to play out, we're going to activate Bello Betty's ability. Give plus 3k to these 3 cards here. 2 of them can attack. They've got 2 Dawn left over here. We're going to go 6k into the brand new, basically forcing my opponent to use at least 2 2ks to get out of it. My opponent does have 2 2ks at the front of their hand, but they're just going to let it go here. And then we're going to go 7k with Koala. So heads up play, protecting that Koala there as Koala is able to continue to push damage on that on this turn. And then we're going to go 8k with Ivankov. Opponent is going to take that one, go down to 2, and then we're going to pass the turn back his way. If you're enjoying this type of gameplay, enjoying the Spin the Wheel series, definitely subscribe, join the crew. We just recently hit 500 crew members, which I'm absolutely ecstatic for. I love our community here, and I'm happy to bring as much more content as I can and constantly come up with new ideas. So definitely subscribe to the channel and like the video if you like this type of content. Going to my opponent's turn here, Aegis got 9 Dawn. Not a whole lot to show for it though, as that Tashigi is the only thing currently on the board, and I am continuing to build my board back up and kind of building up on a little bit of card advantage as well, because Bello Betty is going to at least sacrifice 1 card from hand every single turn, in addition to putting bodies into play here. Opponent has a few potential options, not a whole lot going on though. Looks like a brand new, looks like they've got a Borsalino, a 2k, and then an Ice Age, and a Jack as well. They could play the Jack out. Jack is currently able to KO a 4 or less if they use leader effect in addition to Jack here. Jack can also potentially cycle out some bad cards from their hand to let them see counter, right? Which is one of the biggest resources against Bello Betty. We see an Ice Age also sitting there as well. They could also use the Jack to take out the Koala if they really wanted to. Yep, so they're going to go ahead and Ice Age the Koala. Koala's going to go down to 1. And then they're going to tap, I believe. No, they're going to go with the T-Bone instead. T-Bone's going to KO a 2 or less on play. Electing to go for the more body-heavy play here instead of just going for the Jack for the pure value. Could always use Jack next turn to continue to clean up some bodies here. Jack being another great card for Smoker, since Smoker's ability just with 1 Dawn, you can KO a 4 or less, which is really good into the Dofi matchup for sure. We're going to see an 8k attack. That 8k, I believe, is going into an Emporio Ivankov here, and we're going to show them a 2k and a 1k to get out of that attack here. Now opponent's going to swing 6k into the Koala. Koala is finally going to go down, but Koala got 1 extra swing in, 1 extra potential cards out of hand, so I'm happy with Koala's progress here. Going to pass back to me. Smoker's clearly on damage control right now, as they haven't really touched my life total in the last few turns. I've ended up taking more of my own life than they have at this point. And picking up, I believe that was a Morley, or the other one. One of the 2 Revolutionary Army cards that can trigger into play off of life by discarding a card. I believe this is the other one that can KO a 2 or 3,000 or less when attacking with 7k or more. Not a whole lot of great plays. Was hoping to find a little more potential gas. Another Emporio Ivankov off the top would have been pretty great. But we're going to work with what we can. We've only got, like, what, 4 or 5 cards in Aegis' hand, 2 life, and currently no blockers. We're going to activate here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to make a 7k and a 9k here. I think we're just going to try to push some damage and try to just see how many cards we can get out of my opponent's hand here. We don't want to let Smoker stabilize, because once Smoker starts to stabilize, my life gets a whole lot harder. And it looks like we're going to go an 11k somewhere. Could potentially, because I'm swinging so heavy, could be going into the Shigi here just to completely stop my opponent's play. Yep, we're going to take out the Shigi. We're going to play a little bit for the board as well. And we're going to play out a Karasu. That was the other card in hand here. Karasu's going to minus 1,000. Now we've got a pretty big attack. We've got an 8,000 into a 4,000. Opponent's going to take the hit there. And then now we're going to go ahead and swing 8,000 at a 4,000 again. This is potentially going to prompt my opponent to start pitching some cards from hand, because going to 0 against Bello Betty is incredibly scary. Opponent's going to give me several cards for that one. And I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see my opponent only show me 1 2k and a bunch of 1ks to get out of that attack. And opponent has 2 cards in hand at this point. I have three bodies on board. No cards in hand, though, so my opponent will be able to effectively clean up some of the stuff here. Opponent looks like they've got a Kaido, a Jack, and a Gecko Moria in hand here. So this 5k swing is going to be incredibly free into my Bello Betty here. And now, likely we're going to see the Jack come out. Moria doesn't have too many creative targets here. We're going to start with a 6k into the Ivankov, and then they could use Smoker's effect in addition to a Jack to now just like clean up, or we could play the Kaido as well if they wanted to establish a big body here. But the Kaido not nearly as impressive at this point, because it's going to require a card discarded from my opponent's hand and no card from my hand, because it makes your opponent discard, but I don't have any cards in hand. So a little bit of a 2 for 1 on my opponent's side instead of a 2 for 2 as it usually is. But not having any Rebecca's currently is really unfortunate for good old Aegis Cat here. And instead, I think just the opt to play down the big Kaido here, and they're just gonna get rid of the Moria and just KO here. I think opponent's trying to set up some kind of lethal play here, as a Kaido is just quite a bit bigger than a Jack, and especially if he uses Jack's effect, Jack will be rested, and I will be very tempted to swing into Jack here. We're going to start with a Bello Betty off the top. Bello Betty's going to allow us to look top 5 cards, find something pretty. We find another Emporio Ivankov here. One of the, honestly, best cards to see in this current moment, as it's going to allow me to continue to put bodies into play. We're going to go ahead and tap 5 and play Emporio Ivankov here. Searching for something fun here. And we hit a Koala, a Bello Betty, and a Dragon. A little bit too steep of a price to be put into play off of Ivankov. And we're just going to now play out the Emporio, the Bello Betty. Bello Betty's going to let us look top 5. We're going to look for something else here. We see 2K, we see Koala, which we don't have enough Dawn for. We've only got 4 Dawn left. So we might just end up taking something to hand. Eyeballing the... I'd assume we just put the 2K in hand at this point. But we could just try to fill up board here. But I do think we're going to go for some kind of like mixed play. Of just maybe taking out the T-Bone with Bello Betty. And okay, so we're going to go just play it, grab the Raise Max. We're going to play the Raise Max out. We're going to kind of try to ensure that we take out T-Bone. T-Bone's going to go into into a 2K and then die from the Bello Betty 5K swing. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways we could have done that there. We just wanted to ensure that my opponent didn't have lethal. So now Aegis Cat going to his turn. He's got a Jack and a Ice Age. Can use it to potentially clean up my Emporio Ivankov to try to take me off of lethal here. But we're kind of like this weird standstill where we're trying to ensure that our opponent, each of us don't have enough characters on board to potentially kill lethal, as we're basically running out of resources at this point. 2 cards in hand for Aegis, 0 cards in hand for me. So things are getting a little rough here. So likely gonna Ice Age and then play out the Jack here. Could also just Jack KO the Bello Betty to draw trash to try to find something to replace the Ice Age with. But things are not looking great for the Smoker side here. Would have really liked to see like a Rebecca or something to potentially try to claw their way back into the game. But that's how the RNG flows sometimes. You don't see what you need to see with Smoker. Unfortunately, no Sengoku's kind of off the rip to allow you to kind of discard and draw a bunch of cards here. But not running tip-top shape for Smoker right now. So opponent just reading like I said, this is the first time I think Aegis has played Smoker, so he's reading Kaido to make sure Kaido's effect was not repeatable. And rest assured, yes, no, Kaido is only one time when you play it. He's not a every turn kind of card. That card would be absolutely bonkers if it was every turn. So Aegis gonna go ahead and just set aside, I believe, 7 Dawn here and play out Jack. And then likely just going to clean up one of the Bello Bettys. So he's gonna activate. He's gonna grab a Suitor off the top, so we got a 2K in hand, and then pitch the Ice Age here. But still not a great spot right now. Gonna go 5K into me, and then 9K, and I don't have anything to trigger off life, which at this point doesn't really matter. My opponent has 1 life, no blockers, and 1 card in hand. I can pretty much easily map that out here. And I think we're able to just easily go for game. We were able to outlast Smoker's constant destruction and keep pushing him to cause him to concede. All right, so that's a 9K into, again, that was a 2K off life, but that finished the game, and Bello Betty finishes it up. And yeah, if you like this type of content, definitely subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.